great pleasure to welcome you all to the 16th edition of School of Tomorrow events, Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. The nonprofit SOT event series was launched by Beacon House in 2000 to engage global communities in conversations that shape the future of schools and societies. I'd like to thank Google for education partner TechValley, the lead sponsor for SOT 2023. Other key sponsors include My Backpack, MK Books, Allied Bank Limited, Habib Bank Limited, and Wateen. We also thank our SOT supporters, including Paramount Books and Nestle Pure Life, who have contributed to this year's event. My name is Aisha Ali, and I am head of school for Beacon House Gulshan Campus, Rawalpindi. Please take a moment to note down these important housekeeping points. Please ensure your cell phones are on silent. Always stay calm and follow the directions. Please use the SOT app to scan the QR code for question-answer session and feedback session. Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtag Guardians of the Future and hashtag SOT 2023. If you need assistance, our ushers are here to help you. For questions, please either use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the mobile app. The panel discussion will last for 45 minutes, followed by a 15 minutes question-answer session. Now we are going to start up our day with the first session, which is a panel discussion by the name of Sustainability in Action, Innovative Approaches to Global Climate Change. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Mr. Ahmed Shabar, for it. Ahmed Shabar is the founder of the Pakistan Maholiyati Tahaffuz Movement, PMTM, an effort aimed at pushing for climate justice. A scientist and an engineer by profession, Ahmed Shabar brings his solution-oriented approach to the waste management crisis via his company, Garbage Can. He also raises environmental awareness through his online platform, The Environmental, to tackle the lack of understanding about climate change, to push decision makers to make the right choice for our and their futures. Over to you, Ahmed.
Well, I want to welcome you to the 16th edition of the SOT events. Of course, you've already been welcomed. It's Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow, and Generative AI. The panel today is going to be extremely interesting, and I'd like to share first the motivation of why I wanted to be here, and then we'll move into the actual prompt of it and bring our guests on board. So, as mentioned, that I'm an environmental advocate, so I'm a grassroots mobilizer and an organizer. Always looking towards my seniors, actually, for the right policies and innovation. So the guests that are going to be with us right now, I'm actually giddy to have them exactly where I want them so that I could ask them, important questions and like a bit tough questions as well. So, moving into the panel, so it's about innovative and nature-based solutions. Because as global populations continue to rise and urbanization intensifies, we really need such solutions, considering that our resources and our environment, our resources are limited, and for our environment to be sustainable, we really need to use them properly. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guests. First of all, I'd like to bring on board Hamad Naqvi Sahab. He's an engineer by training. He's a passionate environmentalist who has dedicated his career to finding sustainable solutions for conservation issues. Both a LEED fellow and a Chevening scholar, Hamad holds a master's degree in water and environmental management from the University of Birmingham. He's currently serving as the Director General at the Worldwide Fund for Nature Pakistan, the largest environmental organization in Pakistan and part of the global WWF network. Hamad is also a non-official member of Pakistan Climate Change Council. Welcome. Thank Next, I'd like to call on Mr. Qasim Khan Tareen. He's a professional small-scale organic farmer hailing from the picturesque hills and mountains of Pakistan, boasting over a decade of hands-on experience in this field. Additionally, a co-founder of the farmers market movement, which I've visited many times in Karachi as well, which has flourished from Islamabad to Karachi, bringing fresh, locally sourced produce to our communities. Notably, he has the distinct honor of being unanimously elected as the chairman of the Pakistan Organic Association, where he works diligently to champion the cause of organic farming and its sustainable practices. Welcome, Qasim sir. My third distinguished guest will be Mr. Shah Nasir Khan. He is the head of the UN Resident Coordinator's Office and Senior Strategic Planner for the UN system in Pakistan since October 2019. He has a background in civil engineering with a specialization in earthquake engineering and disaster risk management, as well as a master's degree in political science. His notable achievement includes leading the development of the first UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework 2023 to 2027, so it's ongoing, which has a portfolio of USD 4.73 billion. This strategic prioritization of the framework has contributed to the establishment of the Living Indus initiative. Welcome, Shah Nasir sir. So we'll move directly into the questions because considering we only have 45 minutes and there's a lot of ground to cover. Hamad sahab, I'll direct my first question to you. You've said in the past that climate change is water change. So this makes the issue even more urgent for a country like Pakistan. So what would adaptation and mitigation mean in that context? These are two buzzwords that have been going around, but what would it mean in that context?
Okay, thank you very much, Ahmed. Wonderful to be part of this brilliant panel. Might be, sound a bit biased, but I feel this is the most important topic of SOT 2023, sustainability, because this is all about future generations. This is all about our own survival. Climate and why for Pakistan, climate change is water change. We have a water economy. The major revenue comes from agriculture. Most of the agriculture is irrigated agriculture. We have a population which is still increasing at around 2%. I think one of the few countries in the world where population is still increasing. So maybe around half of the water comes from the snow and glacier melt, and the other half comes from the rains, primarily monsoon rains. So both are, being affected, because if you look at the reports, scientific reports coming out of international research institutes, we are one of the top 5 or 7 vulnerable country, which means that despite the fact that our emissions is less than 1%, we are at the receiving end. And when I say we are at receiving end, for us, because the glaciers are shrinking, and because the monsoon patterns are changing, there will be serious water challenges. And we saw in the last few years that it started with heat waves, drought, floods, and the cycle goes on. 22 was a terrible example where Pakistan was in the news literally everywhere, and Pakistan was in the forefront of country which is facing this climate crisis. Now coming to why not prioritize mitigation and focus on adaptation. Mitigation, as I said earlier, I'm not saying that we do not, stop coal-fired power plants. I'm not saying that we should not promote renewable energy. We must. But for us, for the vast majority of this country, adaptation is the key. We have to ensure that the people living in Chitral, people living in South Punjab, people living in the, the coast of Pakistan, people living in Keti Bandar, Thatta and Garochan, they are more resilient to face these challenges. They should know how to address these challenges. And that's, the reason that as the largest environmental organization, our focus has been on adaptation, whether working with the farmers, whether working with the fishermen, whether working with, an ordinary person or a family living in the mountain areas. Because the people living in the mountains, these are the people who face these glacier lake outburst floods. Now, when I use the word adaptation is the key, it's also important that the systems are in place, that our communities who are at the receiving end are prepared. Now, we come up that we have this national adaptation plan. We have this Ministry of Climate Change. We are maybe one of the few countries in the world who has a dedicated ministry. Is this enough? We all know that's not enough. We all know that the solution lies at the local level. The solution lies where we have adaptation plan for Chitral. We have adaptation plan for a cluster of villages in Gilgit-Baltistan. We have adaptation plan for Thatta and Badin. Literally at the UC level, at the Tehsil level, or maybe to start with at the district level. Coming up with a national adaptation plan is not enough. Maybe addressing the challenges, the governance challenges at the federal level, because there's a federal ministry, makes sense, but until and unless you have, and I'll continue to say that, at the local level, we need to do the vulnerability assessments, the mapping of the country, where we identify which areas are the most vulnerable, and what are the threats which people in Chitral are facing are different from the threats which people in Thatta are facing. So can we have one solution? No. So that's the reason a lot of focus on adaptation.
I wanted to ask, what would those differences look like? Have you looked at the adaptability plan for Chitral and
Yes.
Thatta, for example? Is there a specific
Yeah.
example that you can share?
Exactly. I think so. As part of different projects, we are working on developing these plans. So what are the, where are the gaps? I mentioned one, vulnerability assessment. We need to ensure that our local government is prepared. The early warning system is working again at the local level. The forecasting system, okay, there will be more rain, please, prepare yourself. There will be drought, the farmers should prepare. This should happen at the local level, not that Pakistan Meteorological Department issuing a kind of a press release, start of the monsoon season that we'll have 30% more or 30% less monsoons this year. I mean, that's also important. But so these are the gaps, identifying the most vulnerable area, coming up with solutions and plans for those small local area, strengthening the local government system. The General Musharraf's local government system was effective, and the entire idea of devolution was that governance happens at the local level. So that's the key. Strengthen your local government, your representative at the UC level, at the village level, and they should be trained, they should be sensitized, right. And they should be, their capacity should be built to address these challenges.
Right. I absolutely agree, and unfortunately the local structure is very weak. But before we go on to the actual local structure, Qasim, I wanted to ask you a question. Because of course all of these are made out of, structures are made out of humans, and the very first unit is the person's home. So as chairman of the Pakistan Organic Association, how can your association promote bringing nature into the home, especially in urban spaces? What impact do you think that would have? And do you think that would impact, as Hamad Sahab mentioned, the local government and everything as well? Because the UC chairman or the UC councillors, etc., that would perhaps help them appreciate things better as well.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. You might remember a few years ago, there was a district commissioner in Islamabad who had wanted to start a pilot project for rooftop gardens, because in the Potohar and places that are rain-fed, it was very viable to be able to grow food on your rooftop. And I think it's a worthy point to note out here that you had a government official, a senior government official in Islamabad Capital Territory wanting to implement something like a rooftop garden. So that goes to show that a policy like that, an initiative like that, has it will have a great impact. It was recognized by a government official to have a massive impact. And the association essentially has been creating or trying to create this awareness for the past almost decade. We saw a really aggressive increase in the interest towards growing food at home during COVID. During COVID, everything all the parameters changed. People wanted to eat healthy, they wanted to eat at home. Going to a grocery store became like going into a war zone, with hazmat suits and hand sanitizers. So people really realized how vulnerable our supply chains are for food. And again, making your home into a food production unit is not a new revolutionary idea. If you look at all of our rural roots, we essentially all grew food at home, even now in a lot of places in Pakistan, bazari has a negative connotation, right? People would like to serve their guests food that they've grown at home, cooked at home, prepared at home, ye mera makhan hai, ye mera ghee hai, ye mera paneer hai, So you've got this incredible, this origin, this credible heritage of growing food, Indus Valley civilization, the Indus. And really, it's just about giving people a little bit of confidence, especially in urban areas, to be able to grow food at home. So that's what we try to aim to do as the association.
That's great. So you spoke about the supply chain and which impacted food security and other issues as well. And you of course just spoke about the Indus Valley civilization too. So my next question, you helped me segue directly into it, into Shah Nasir Saab ke, like I'll put to Shah Nasir Saab. But before we can speak about the living Indus, I wanted to ask, because as Hamad Saab also mentioned, a Chitrali plan would be different from a Thatta plan. So considering that there's a lot of jargon, that's because mitigation, adaptation, that doesn't really mean much to the people in the grassroots. So how can international cooperation that you've worked with and policy frameworks be leveraged to foster understandable and understandable strategies in response to global climate challenges? Some things that the local people can actually understand and make Hamad Saab's life easier as well, and policymakers' life easier as well a little bit.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ahmed Saab. Again, I'm very privileged to be here, and the august audience and wonderful colleagues on the panel. And I was the one to violate my own policy of not sitting on a manel anymore, having all men. But for this event, I had to violate that policy because it was necessary for that.
For the record, there was a female on it, and she just she dropped out of it yesterday. And I pointed that out as well. And we were trying to get youth, like a female youth, on board, but it was too last.
So, Ahmed Saab, yeah, I mean, because this is such an important topic, we have to go deviate from what actually we are doing, and what. The important point of, and let me step back and about the point of like yes, we are now the era of boiling is over. We are in the era of burning, and we need a burning ambition to do it. And you can't do it with the international cooperation, with our jargons, with our fancy words, with the so wherever I went to Pakistan, when we were working on this cooperation framework and talked to the people, everybody was impacted by the climate change. And at the same time, and they were not able to understand the graphs, the charts, the jargons, the gloom, the doom that we talk about. But they understand one thing, and we understood one thing from sitting with them, because the foresight and the visioning, as Hamad Saab said, like that's the governance or whichever sector that's missing. What we understood, that international cooperation should come up with practices that are of course important, but in a way that the people understand it. And for us, for Pakistan, climate change is either more water or less water. You have a moonstone in steroids, and you have drought and the water table going down in Balochistan. So we understood it, and right from the mountains to the mangroves and from the ridges to the reef, it's Indus Basin. And let me step back and talk about, rather than the international cooperation, Indus is the lifeline for Pakistan. This country, we are the only country who has rolled back the militancy. Other countries couldn't do till now, Iraq, Somalia, Afghanistan. That was an existential threat. That is not. Indus Basin and the survival of that basin, non-survival of that basin is an existential threat to the state. And right, like look at our civilization, 5,000 years or 8,000 years, 90% of our population dependent on it. 85% of economy, 9 out of 10 big cities in the vicinity of 50 kilometers. Remove Indus from our epics and you don't have a love story. Remove epic from our, remove Indus from the center, you don't have economy. You don't have, it's a demographic challenge, it's an economic challenge. Impacts the three triple planetary crises we talk about, loss of biodiversity, the pollution, the climate change. And right from the north, the glacial lac outburst floods, the lack of ecotourism, down to Punjab, you have unplanned urbanization, you have the arsenic, you have the nitrates, you have the plastic. Down to the delta, you are just like the intrusion. And we are basically, that was being hit and we were not getting it. So we said, okay, international cooperation, yes, climate change, yes, but it should come in a localized language that the people should understand, they can connect to it. And that was what we brought in to say the living Indus. Look at it as a living being, the persona of it. You need to understand it. You are and we didn't ask many questions. We said the only question that we ask is, it has made you to survive from last 5,000 or 8,000, 9,000 years, from wherever point you take the history. 100 years more, this is a question. And the answer is no. With all these threats, we are not able to, the Indus won't survive, and so will we.
I wanted to ask, sorry for interrupting, before we move more into the living Indus question. I wanted to ask, for example, does anybody over here know the word for recycling in Urdu? Kabadi. There you go. You're actually first. It's all usually a silent thing. And what's HDP plastic called in Urdu? In the Urdu slang, high density polyethylene. Yeah, it's called guddi rubber. Guddi rubber because gudde guddiyan or dolls were made out of that material. So there's a lot of slang that's, and a lot of localized language that is already associated with such industries. So in that context, as you mentioned as well, to make it more understandable and to make the living Indus more close to people. So what would the Urdu word or phrase be for mitigation or for adaptation? And how did you make people realize that both these are, related to saving the Indus as well?
I would use one word, and which has, you can put it in any language. It's survival, your life. Indus is your life.
And jahan hai to jaan hai.
You can't, this is your life. Yeah. So we were putting it into that very simple terminology on it. And rather than using any terminology, and we are as an international civil servant, we are very good at developing these fancy words and jargons, and so we can develop so many words. Me and Hamad Sahib, if together we can do it much more than that. But I would say this is life.
Right. One of my mentors, I went to him recently and he told me, oh, you're working with environment stuff. I said, ji, bilkul. Have you heard of the phrase, jaan hai to jahan hai? I said, yes. And like, okay, now flip it. Jahan hai to jaan hai. Like, if the world doesn't survive, then there's just no way that you or I or anybody else is alive. So, but moving from simplifying things more to like a little bit of jargon, I guess, Hamad Sahib, my next question would be to you. That, and considering we're talking about the evolution and advancement in technology and everything as well, that what financial strategies and instruments can drive innovation? And instead of playing catch up, how do you think we can get ahead of the climate emergency? We go to all these international forums after disaster hits. But how do we play catch up, and what financial instruments, for example, the Green Climate Fund or the loss and damage, like how can we actually use it to get ahead of the situation?
Okay, this is a important and sensitive question. This is the debate which the developing world has been taking or having with the developed north. और उसका crux क्या है कि climate change is because of the developed world. It's their responsibility to support the developing south. हम तो receiving end पे हैं, लुट गए, बर्बाद हो गए, आप हमें पैसा दो, which is actually true. Now, what were the commitments? The commitments was that there will be a global adaptation fund. The commitment was there will be green climate fund. The commitment was that there will be $100 billion every year available to the developing world. Where is that money? That's question number one. So, as a matter of fact, the developed north was not able to, to come up to the, not the expectations, but the commitments that they made and they agreed upon. That's number one. I think the total funds which the Green Climate Fund has access is $12 billion, which is nothing. Just look at the statement of Pakistan's finance minister 2 days ago at the Pakistan Climate Conference in Karachi. She said, Pakistan, and I don't know where does that number come from, she said that we need $340 billion in the next 7 years to address climate. Oh my God, that's a huge amount. This is the 10% of our GDP. Who's going to give us this money? Period. I mean, the world overall, globally, was able to get $12 billion and Pakistan coming up with a fancy. I mean, I'm not debating that the figure is wrong. So that's one which is a fact, and then take the example of loss and damage. Loss and damage, after the last COP, it was, our minister, Shahri Rahman, also raised this. And I think the message was loud and clear that what happened in Pakistan will not stay in Pakistan. Maybe, we received the brunt floods, drought, and we saw that, even the developed world. Look at the floods in Germany, look at the floods in Spain, look at the floods in Greece. So, Spain ki, we were discussing, olives ki fasal, 50% of the global olive oil supply hota hai. Because of the drought, the olives, the olives crop got damaged. So that's a reality. Now, what is, coming to again, to your other, the second part of your question, what is the solution? The solution is that a continuous struggle, in a collaborative, continuous manner, where the developing South, really push to have those funds available. Or the process still continues. I mean, yesterday they agreed to host, World Bank to host the loss and damage fund. Shukar hai, uska implementation framework. So the things are moving forward, but not moving forward to the scale which is required. Now, the second part, I think, which I feel is more important. Now, nobody has stopped us to improve our own house. Develop North, hamari madad karo, hum ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya. Who has stopped us to, the point that I made earlier, to have the vulnerability assessment? Who has stopped us to make these plans? Who has stopped us to have good, effective early warning system, forecasting system, so the community in Chitral know that there's a glacier outburst and there's a possibility that the village will be wiped off. So these are the things, I think, which we should prioritize, because it's our people. Right. It's our people who are at the receiving end. So these are the two parts. Fully agree, as an environmentalist, develop North, bhai, it's your role. ये आपका किया करा है, मदद करो, but हमने अपना घर भी ठीक करना है.
Right, taking that question further, before you had mentioned where that money was, so I guess we should ask Shah Nasser Sahab that question as well. Where is that money, Shah Nasser Sahab, considering international cooperation? But before we get to that, Hamad Sahab ki baat ko aage badhate हुए, you just spoke about early warning systems, and you also spoke about putting our house in order. But at the same time, you also mentioned what happens in Pakistan will not stay in Pakistan, right? So, one context, of course, is the disaster that happens in Pakistan, or the impact of climate change that will happen in Pakistan will not stay in Pakistan. But do you think we can flip the script and ask, the innovations that happen in Pakistan will not stay in Pakistan either? The innovations that happen in Pakistan can actually save the rest of the, considering it's most urgent for us, or as I say कि ज़रूरत इजाद की माँ होती है कि हमें तो ज़रूरत, the global north doesn't need it. We really need to invent and innovate. So do you think that the funds that are coming in, they will be able to develop, like how do we use that money? फिर वो पैसा आ गया, फिर वो, क्योंकि I met with Shahbaz Sharif साहब recently as well. Again वो पैसा आ गया, वो जो है फिर कहाँ लगे कहाँ ना लगे, और जो floods के उसमें लग जाए, ठीक है. But how do we drive the innovation?
वो जो शहबाज शरीफ साहब का पैसे है ना, वो या फ्लाईओवर में लगेगा या अंडरपासेस में लगेगा. Sorry. Okay. So innovation. Look, I think that's also very important for a country like Pakistan. What about, we always come up, oh, the World Bank is funding, giving us $80 million to have this flood risk management program. So the point is, as an engineer, I'm sharing this with you. I mean, there are always visible, huge, infrastructure-based engineering solutions. But there are also smaller, indigenous, cost-effective, nature-based solutions. That's number one. And I give you an example. So we are working with communities in KP and in GB, where just constructing, these slope stabilization structures, which you just use the locally available stone and some, these wires, and then you can stop the slope. Identifying the low-lying areas and constructing ponds. Living Indus Initiative, as one of the interventions, talks about 100,000 ponds in the country. Why do we need mega dams? Paisa koi aapko de nahi raha. And we're talking about Memon Dam, Dyamir, Bhasha, Flana, ye, green, red, black, kala. So the thing is, we should, out of the box thinking is required. This is the moment. The politicians would always prefer to inaugurate a project. फीता काटना है, फोटो शूट होना है, ठीक है, बट वो छोटों का भी कर लें, 10 इकट्ठे कर लें. So nature-based solution, I think, or maybe later I can briefly tell you about the Recharge Pakistan, which WWF, it took us 5 years to come up with a project on nature-based solution, and we were able to raise $78 million from the Green Climate Fund, which is one of the largest projects in the history of Pakistan. अगर गवर्नमेंट ने साइन कर दिया उसको. So that's where, nature-based solutions. Another thing, ये जो artificial intelligence है, because that's the theme, I think that's where जिस तरह teachers की अगर using artificial intelligence, you can build the capacity and you can, slightly reduce the burden or improve the performance. Similarly, to tell you again, couple of examples. We are using camera traps based on artificial intelligence in Gilgit-Baltistan. These cameras can differentiate between a leopard, a snow leopard, and a mountain ungulate, ke Marco Raiga ya, Marco Polo sheep. So because the local people were worried, and whenever there is some khadka ya noise or, oh, there's a leopard, and leopard has come to eat my goats, and they will come up with guns. And so now, that system can differentiate whether it's a leopard or, it's an ibex or markhor.
That's actually pretty incredible. But I wanted to ask, take the conversation about tech forward towards organic farming as well. So considering, and the Hamad Sahab absolutely mentioned that considering the theme of the SOT event this time, that how can advancements in AI generative, optimize, say, or generative AI optimize, say, energy, device adaptation strategies in helping organic farmers and the agricultural industry in general as well, which of course in Pakistan uses a lot of water, for example. So Qasim, how do you think generative AI can help you within your, and you can then help other small farmers as well?
First and foremost would be in energy. If everybody is now a victim of very high energy bills, and when you speak about small farmers who already have very small revenue streams, if you put the burden of hyperinflation on them, it is catastrophic for a small farm. I'd just like to speak briefly about our experience from last year. We had 40 degrees in March. This is 2022. Now 40 degrees in March in
Yeah.
springtime when all the trees have their flowers, blossoms that become into fruit, that you can imagine the impact that has on the entire yearly income of a small farmer, whether organic or conventional. After that, you had a drought. I had a fire, wildfires around my farm. It came and burnt a chicken shed of mine. We had the livestock disease, lumpy skin disease.
Yeah.
And then you had the floods.
My God.
And then you
Right.
had hyperinflation, where you had fuel prices increase by 80%. So any small business, how can it survive something like that, So that was last year. We have spent most of this year just recovering from last year. So we're talking about people who grow your food. These are the people who are on the front lines of the battle against climate change, We feel the impact. My office is my farm. I am outdoors. If it rains, if there's a heat wave, that directly impacts me. It'll affect my physical health, my plants, my animals, my farm. So AI, what we've done with solar, I've also, electric vehicles is, another thing that we've also invested in. But AI for solar now is a household. It's accessible for households. It's accessible for not just big industry, but also small consumers. That has reduced our energy bill by, more than 90%,
More than 90%?
Here you have,
Wow,
you've
okay.
got smart inverters that can connect you to the grid, connect you to your solar panels, or connect you to a battery based on the level of sunlight that we're receiving. This is a game changer, it's a small, if you think about it, it's small in the whole world of AI, where AI can essentially run nuclear submarines, according to Mission Impossible, the movie. So we're just talking about a small little AI system in your house that controls where your electricity is coming from at what time in the day. Massive impact for us, Also, AI, when it comes to weather, predicting weather, highly, highly challenging, we're talking about even with satellite, state-of-the-art technology, you still cannot predict the weather, You tell me with 100% guarantee that it's going to rain tomorrow, I will still check the weather forecast 5 times. If I have a system that can give me, a much more dynamic approach to weather, excellent. Irrigation systems on AI, depending on moisture and temperature levels, who are drip irrigating your soils. You're talking about not just saving your energy of running a tube well or a diesel pump, but also then reducing your water consumption. This is also a massive game changer, also something that we've done. Now, an app on your phone can give you the temperature and the moisture levels of your field,
Yes.
and will automatically then also release water into the
also
field,
using
Something that we haven't done, but again is something that we are looking into is drones. Again, an automatically programmed drone that will take off and survey farms at a certain point of day, recording temperature and moisture levels.
So I wanted to ask, considering we're talking about policies, we're talking about tech and everything as well, and of course, at the same time, we're talking about nature-based solutions. So do you think that all of these policies and the tech that's being developed, that the locals or the farmers are actually subscribing to that idea? So you have used AI, yes, and you've reduced your bills by, say, 90%. But how about those around you? How about other farmers? And how do you think that will, we can push this, or policymakers like Hamad Sahab and Shah Nasir Sahab and the government can push this throughout Pakistan?
Well, smartphones zindabad, okay? Now everybody in every corner of the country is connected. Their smartphone and mobile penetration it's over 100 million. Nasab, I'm sure you have better figures than I do. So you'd be amazed at how much information now farmers have access to. Programs like Ba Khabar Kisan that was sponsored by Jazz. Telecommunication industry partnering with government. We're talking about, essentially in our small farming community we call co-ops, cooperatives, collaborations. The impact is being felt by farmers, and a lot of farmers now, especially what I was talking about when it comes to weather, moisture and temperature levels, for them to receive accurate information big impact and people are using it. When it comes to fertilizer usage, this is something where I think we are still lacking, where farmers are still now overusing fertilizers and chemical fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers. Again, this is something where I think we need more focus on.
Great. So moving, I think we have another 3 minutes and then 15 minutes of Q&A, or we might go over by 1 or 2 minutes, but we'll see. Shana says, speaking of policies and speaking of, where is the money? So we were discussing beforehand that there's UNFCCC, there's UNDP, there's UNEP, there's so many different organizations, and sometimes the red tape to communicate within these can be very difficult as well. So how do you think you can get international cooperation, and what have your efforts been within that to, basically bring in the money as well, or where that money is? And so what other policies like the Living Indus would you also be working on? This is a two-parter. Where the money is and how you can push for cooperation for more projects like the Living Indus.
Yeah. So, no, thank you so much, and this is a very important question. So basically, yes, we have, like, for example, and again, when we were talking about the Living Indus as such, like you can see, we have UN agencies. We work from the glacial lac outburst floods to the plastic bottles and the recycling of the plastic, and small things on permaculture or agriculture, but there was no there was no big approach. And we need a big approach. A country like Pakistan, 270 million, 240 million plus people, and they need a big approach than what we were supposed to do. And the member states required the United Nations to work together, and that led us to our reforms which are being implemented. The cooperation framework was the first tool and enabler to do that reforms. So in 2018, the member states which led to the creation of my office, the resident coordinator office, and a senior strategic planner, so that you have one cooperation framework. You identify the 4 or 5 transformative pathways which can lead you to sustainable development, and then you sharpening the focus by the way we did for the climate change, that Indus is for Pakistan. So rather than the awareness and the seminars and the walks and the things on small, so a patchwork of things would not work. So we brought in all the 20 agencies together to the 20 agencies who signed the cooperation framework, and then country program documents derived from this one framework, which says this is climate change for Pakistan. This is what need to work on. And of course, as I say, like Living Indus, it's only, as I said, it's not one project or program. It's a menu of 25 interventions, as Hamad Saab said, 100,000 community ponds. The persona of Indus, the heritage sites on it, the glacial lac outburst floods in the north, and how to save the areas in the coastline. So it's that whole menu, but implemented with a single vision, and not in, and climate action basically requires us to do too. So we have to go from this band-aids. Ministry of Climate Change is the ministry of everything, and every ministry is the ministry of climate change. If we are on a thin ice, and this ice is melting very fast. We have to be, as I said, the mess that we have created, our ambitions should be bigger than the mess that we have created with this situation. And we have to remove our band-aids. UNEP, not Environmental Protection Agency only, the FAO, not the Food Agency, and that has to be removed, and that is what and a social movement which can be led by the schools like the Beacon House, this conference is so important. You have to raise that ambition, because I want my little girl to go to Khaplu after 30 years with her kids and say, look, this is a beautiful place, which I can do today. After 1.5 years in Khaplu, I could see the river filled up of plastic. I could see the concrete buildings rising up, and Chitral again, like with the tunnel, you can see the ecotourism nowhere, no single vision that can be worked on. Let's raise our ambitions, and that is at the UN level. We are a very small part of it, $4.7 billion for 5 years. You have big budgets, big people, and a social movement is critical to do the climate action.
Absolutely. I completely agree that the Ministry of Climate Change is the ministry of everything. But I'm actually a firm believer that politics is basically negotiation of how to maintain our environment so that everybody can, get an equitable share and live sustainably. But with this, we're at the very end of our panel. We will open it up with after your concluding remarks. Very quickly, I wanted to ask. You've already mentioned that the schools, what the role the schools have to play. But considering, Hamad sir, the closing remarks are for all of you in the last 30 seconds, if you could wrap it up. Okay, considering the red tape and the speed that our machinery moves in, do you think that Pakistan will ever be able to catch up to the technological advancements in AI and the role that schools would have to play? And then in 2 minutes, we'll have to move to the Q&A.
I'm a very optimistic fellow, but I don't know. Lately, I'm started, losing some hopes. I think primarily the reason is that you see the absence of consistent policies. You see that it's not being treated as a priority, whether it's the agriculture sector. Extension services should take the message which Qasim, shared few of the practices to the farmers. But if they are asked, कि आप तुमने कोई और काम करना है, so that's where, the organizations and the leadership, if they don't realize what is their mandate and what is their job and what is the priority, and they indulge in every other thing but their own, work, or expectation is also like this, then that would not, lead us to the place where we have to be.
Qasim, do you agree?
I mean, absolutely. This reminds you of one of my favorite quotes from Wendell Berry. He's an American novelist and environmentalist. Eating is an agricultural act. Yeah. Okay. All of us eat food, and we're all sitting down to eat meals 3 times a day. So the power of the choices that we make are, I think, underestimated. And it's so encouraging to hear Shah Sahab talk about how we need big changes. And that starts from, each one of us and the choices we make. I think we can't underestimate the power of personal choice. If we have chosen not to have plastic water bottles here,
that's true,
on our panel, that's a small thing, but I think the impact is big.
Right. Thank you. Shah Sahab, last 15 seconds, if you'd like to add something, then we open it up to the floor.
So the policies, I think Pakistan is a very good graveyard of very good policies. So the question is what kind of policies need to be made at government level to tackle the climate change. The point is implementation and how we as a society lack our common vision to do that. And I was in Skardur Khaplu like 2 weeks back. And we were talking about the same thing. We though that community is far, far better than so many communities in Pakistan, we as community, what our vision is. And similarly, Chitral, we are doing some foresight and visioning work now with the Chitral, the local government leaders. We don't have districts like Bahawalpur, 5 million people, which are bigger than 60, 65 countries, the member states of UN. They don't have a local government. You don't have the charter of continuity of development. So I think it's not policy, it's about the implementation, and we need to focus on implementation and at every level. And the social movement, as we call it, the social push that is important for making that policy implementable is missing. And we as citizens have to do that, to ask our elected representative, elections is coming, putting the climate action into the political agendas. We would vote because you would talk about climate. That is where our work would come in.
I absolutely agree. And Hamad Sahab wants to take this question. I actually wanted to pose it to Qasim, but I'll read the question out. I'll read the question out. Change is a question of leadership. Do we see light at the end of the tunnel, or is a train of climate catastrophe coming at us?
So as part of our work at WWF, we work closely. We feel the youth, is the key. Engaging youth, building their capacity, sensitizing them. So when I visit universities, schools, or colleges, and so I was like my generation and my father's generation, we miserably failed. But I tell you honestly, This generation, I have high hopes. A, they are more knowledgeable, and then the kind of information and technology which is, available to them. And we have seen globally. Greta Thunberg was like, I don't know, 14 years old when she led the climate movement. And now, she literally tells the political leaders of the world, even, the big policemen of the world, what needs to be done, where are the gaps. So if she can do it, why can't? So, and we have the potential, the Fridays for Future, the climate strike that, we were discussing, a lot of things. And coming up with solutions. I was supervising kind of an innovation activity, brilliant ideas coming up with these kids. And a lot of these ideas, practical, implementable, and ideas which can be scaled up. So that's the hope. This particular generation, these youth, they are our hope. They are more aware. They are more influential also in many cases. The thing is, let's hope that the leadership gives them this opportunity, encourages them, supports them, not to discourage them and not to put iron curtains, on them. Let them innovate, let them remain creative, let them use their energy in a positive manner. Yeah.
I was actually going to interject and ask what you thought about my generation, but then you answered that question when you skipped directly to
No, you are younger than me.
Okay, so you skipped us. So, Qasim, same question to you, and also what do you think can be done?
No,
soon?
I like how the question was that when is the climate change catastrophe train coming?
Coming up.
It is here. It is very much here. We've been suffering from it for the past, I would say, better part of this decade, and especially last year. Last year was very, very bad. And when you talk about small farmers and the agricultural sector, I definitely think they bore the brunt on the front lines, and especially places like Chitral, mountainous areas. They really, I remember I spent my summer in Chitral last year, and at least personally, I was there for maybe 2 months, and I was caught in 3 landslides. Wow. So my heart goes out to those people who their daily commute is through an avalanche or a landslide. So the climate catastrophe is very much a reality in Pakistan. We have been bearing the brunt of it. That's why, yes, we are, top 10 most affected countries by climate change. And unfortunately, very low contributor to that, especially when you get very local. Look at Chitral. Is there one factory in Chitral? Okay. What's the population of Chitral? So their carbon emission is probably in the negative, right? They're probably carbon negative. And here, a district like that is bearing the lion's share of this catastrophe. So that has to be recognized and taken into account, especially when you're in these areas, and especially when it comes to policy making, that these areas need special attention.
Right, I agree, and we have the very last question on the board. What is being done to support student-led climate action organizations / startups? I'd like to address that very quickly as well, and then open it up. Hamad have just mentioned the climate strike and the Fridays for Future and Greta Thunberg and others. What I've seen, and I was joking about our role. We need to be self-critical and self-aware as well. So I realized that my, role at this point in time is to guide these further into how to organize, how to mobilize, and how to actually push conversation forward. So there's a climate strike coming up on November 17th. I'm leading it, and this is happening across Pakistan right now. So students from Beacon House, students everybody else over here, whoever wants to participate, they can. It's being marketed in Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi, Gwadar, Turbat, Pishin, Quetta, Peshawar, Gilgit, and Thatta, Larkano, Jacobabad, in 16 plus, 20 plus cities at this point in time. So we definitely need to lead or have the students lead us. I think we can support them by having them lead us. Is that something that you would agree with? I think these will be closing remarks, a minute each.
I think the first thing and the move foremost is have their voice at every table where the decision making, policy making is happening. Listen to them. bringing to everything, and that's what we are also changing. We are bringing like everything, and we have been trying to work differently on this, bringing a high-level advisory of youth to the resident coordinator in Pakistan. We are bringing now as a UN Pakistan, we are required to report to the General Assembly on youth engagement every year. So that's one of the changes that we're bringing, and I think that's listening to them, because they have the innovative ideas, as you rightly said, and they have the power to change it. And secondly, they are the people who will be able to change it. Yeah. So I think that's one thing. Secondly, supporting them in terms of, I think, the dialogues or the forums like this that you are providing, like for example this one, that is where we are lacking it. So get them that option to exercise that and to be more vigilant and more, of course the organizations like WWF, the UN, or the government, they need to bring them more into the practical actions part and innovative solutions. We always are after hiring people who are more experienced, so bring them into the work for as much as you can before they are even have finished their studies, to make them, and based on how energetic they are in these crucial issues like the climate action.
So there was a question about climate funding as well. So Hamad sir, there is a UN constituency called Yango, which is focused on creating awareness about youth-focused funds. So to ask your question to yourself, like, where is the money? And where do you think the money is, and how can it support students?
I mean, despite the fact that it is said that developing North is not playing its role, I tell you honestly, you develop good quality proposals, there's a lot of money available. I'm sharing my own experience. You know, we develop proposals and we get money. So money is there. You have to develop good quality proposals, implement in a transparent and effective manner, so that the communities, if you don't implement them, maybe a donor will give you money once and then they say, this is like, ye to apni gaadiyan li, flana kiya, ye kiya, paisa khatam. So I think that's very important. Youth engagement, last point, we wanted to listen to them. So in our board, now there are 2 youth representatives. There's a girl from Khyber, Gilgit-Baltistan, who returned after doing her PhD, brilliant. Dr. Fauzia. She's on our board, and then there's a boy, both in their 20s, and they now literally influence even the board in decision making. Yeah.
Qasim, closing remarks?
So, I mean, my closing remark would be, we need lots of money. For the UN, I think the official figure is $5 trillion is what's required to pivot from fossil-based economy to a more renewable energy-based economy. $5 trillion, So when we talk about 20 million, 50 million for a country like Pakistan, which is, top 10 most affected, it's nothing. We have no funding. So Islamabad has a unique sort of dynamic where we have a lot of international organization head offices here. I would encourage everybody here, the next time you do meet somebody from one of these organizations, tell them we need a lot more money.
Yeah. Great. I think that's a good way to end this. So I'd like to thank our panelists, Hamad Saab, Shah Nasir Saab, Qasim Tareen Saab, and of course our audience as well for participating in SOT 16, right? SOT 16, 2023. School of Tomorrow 16, 2023. And we'd also like to thank our sponsors, especially Google for Education, for helping to make this event possible. And please do share your feedback after this session on the events app, not just about the participants, of course, their answers and their policies as well. Visit our exclusive immersive art exhibit in Gallery 6. There you go. Perfect.
Yeah, just before closing. So we would like to thank Narjis, who was like who made this manual to work. So you were behind it. So thank you. A big clap for her.
That's actually true.
Thank you.